right. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Hope you're all doing well. My name is Piper Meuwissen, and I am a ceramics student at Adams State, and I am going to be graduating this coming May in about a month, which is super exciting. But I'm very excited to be here today and talk to you guys about what I've been researching the past year and a half, pretty much. So we are going to be talking a lot about dirt and earth and clay. So here we go. Just a little bit of an overview of what I do and framework for my project is I have been working with clay for the past 4 years here at Adams, and I'm very interested in the local materials and food and community. And I've been really diving into what makes this place so unique and so special. And so I came up with my own definition of what place is. And for me, that's a collaborative and interactive space that is built on sharing food, adventures, geography, and time. And so, really, what that means is just getting out and exploring and what comes out of those adventures and sharing food. Because when you share food, you share love and experiences and time with people. And I think those are, to me at least, the most important things in life. So my work is largely based off of taking the materials that I find in nature here in the valley, and I make tableware. So that's sets of like plates, bowls, cups, salad bowls, platters, pitchers, that kind of thing. And it's all to celebrate this place that we live in. So that's kind of delving into the what and the why a little bit. But why I make tableware specifically is to elevate the experience of eating and drinking. Because when you sit down for your morning cup of coffee, how often do you think about where that dirt that your cup is made out of came from, where that clay is from? And so, what I really want is to have people see my artwork and it reminds them of the place where it came from. And so, that's the kind of where I dive into the connecting people to the place they live in. And I think that's a very crucial thing just to be more connected and more aware and more grateful and present in your daily life. And it also contributes to this idea of collective memory of what we give to the place we're in for whatever amount of time we are there. So, just a bit of historical and artistic influences. Utilitarianism is an art movement that I'm particularly drawn to because it's about the objects themselves being useful in some way to the viewer or the user, most often the user, as utilitarianism itself is the beauty comes from the use of the object, not just looking at the object. And I find that very true. I think that's kind of a lot of the field of at least production potters or ceramicists who make objects to be like tableware to be used and to be eaten out of and to be have like to drink from. And so what I find is this movement highlights that the beauty of the object comes from the use, not just the decorations on the outside of the object. And one of the most famous utilitarian potters specifically is Warren Mackenzie, and he was known for his simple, honest pot. So he would make very well-made things that didn't take him a long time and that were structurally sound, but very beautiful and could be used every day. And that's where the beauty came from. And he's trained under some of the best Japanese potters in the world. And so he brings that line into his work, or he brought it into his work, I guess. And one of my favorite quotes from him is that my pots are nothing special. They're simply to be held in the hand, admired, and used daily. And I find this very beautiful because it highlights the earth and the clay and the actual object itself, not just the glaze that was put on it. And so that's what I try to do in my work with the utilitarian aspect of reminding people that the cup or the bowl or the plate that they're eating or drinking from is unique, and because clay is very unique and place-based. So another movement that I'm very inspired by and influenced by is Impressionism, and it was a movement that emerged in Paris in the 1860s, and it's about capturing the feeling of a person or a place rather than the details. And so a lot of this happened. A lot of these painters, it was mostly a painter movement, but they would do plein air painting where they would go out in a field and set up a canvas and go outside and paint. And it was all very gestural. And I find that translates to my work. Another example of this, a modern day Impressionist artist, is Renan Ozterk. He's a photographer, a cinematographer, and a painter and a mountaineer as well, just all around a cool human being. But he takes these large canvases with him when he goes on his mountain expeditions and paints and captures the feeling and the essence of the place. And I think this is tied into my work because I like to capture feeling or the colors of a place rather than draw out very specific and detailed things. One more interesting project is by these two Dutch designers who went around to farmlands in the Netherlands and collected all sorts of soil samples and dirt and adjusted that clay and made beautiful pottery out of it. And what they did is they celebrated this pottery they made from the local land by having plein air dinners where they would invite the farmers whose land they collected the dirt from and serve meals on these beautiful platters and plates and cups. And it's very influenced, like their style of how they made the pots are very influenced by traditional Dutch tableware, which is very similar to what I'm doing, is taking a material from the place and making it for connect to the history of this place. So a little bit of the theoretical context is I think it's very important to be present in the moment. And a few things that I'm very interested in are these ideas of time, memory, and connection. Because when we're in a place, we all give to the collective memory of that place, no matter how long we're there, if we're just passing through, if we live there, if we stay there. And so I think it's very interesting to think about what we as individuals contribute to this collective memory in this place. Because after all, that's kind of what history is, in a sense of what does each individual contribute to this story that is this ongoing story of this place in this place. And so what I would like to contribute is this idea of connecting people and food and place, because this valley is very rich in agriculture and it's so unique in so many different ways, just geologically speaking. And we could go into a whole rabbit hole of that, but just geologically and with different cultures, it's such a crossroads of place. Of course, not all like good things happen here, but there's so many different ecosystems and histories and stories and peoples who have passed through here and still live here. So I think, and we have to account for this like unique experience of every individual in the place, because none of us experience the world the same as other people. So those are kind of a lot of some main issues that I'm working with. Another theoretical idea or context for my work that influences it is called happenings. And these were art events, or just events that were arranged and curated in the 1960s. Most often is when it emerged. And these were they were events put on by artists where there was loose framework and they were very time-based and only happened in the moment, and where these artists would curate an experience where they would put out certain rules but then leave the viewers to kind of make up what that experience was going to be to them. And I think this is very interesting, is like what I'm doing is curating an experience for my show, which I will talk about in just a moment. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is land art and site specific for a theoretical context for my work. Land art and site specific work emerged directly in contrast to the minimalist movement that happened, where art was designed to be viewed in any location. It wouldn't be the same thing. So just art for art's sake. Whereas land art and site specific work is, as the title suggests, very specific to a place and a time and a season or a specific landmark or anything like that. And a lot of these works are very ephemeral and have time constraints, so they don't last forever. And or they might just exist for 5 minutes or 1 month, or just for the amount of time that they're up in a gallery, if they are in a gallery. And it's also, I think, very conducive to the type of work I do, because I use land and earth is not fixed. It is always changing. And so to celebrate that idea and use earth as a material, I think you have to be kind of aware of this fact that um, it is ephemeral and it does not exist the same way ever. And this example here is a work that I've did a couple years ago, where it's that idea of dust to dust, like everything that is made and created in, especially just with the pottery example, is this landscape deconstructing into dirt, which reconstructs into pottery, which will eventually deconstruct back into dirt and dust and turn into the landscape. So it's a very like cyclical way of viewing the world. And an artist who does this specifically is Rael, and he's actually in the Valley and down in Antonito. I got to meet him this past fall, and his work is very site specific, and dealing with, he 3D prints Adobe, which is pretty cool. And so he's curating an experience that's abnormal for what the material is generally used for, how it generally looks. And I just connect to his work because of the fact that I also use local material and I've been prospecting my own clay. And so just to delve right into that, what I've been doing in the fall is I went around and collected a whole bunch of dirt from the valley, and I went around to the rivers and the marshes and the wetlands and just collected dirt. And then I went into the studio and took that dirt and I tested it. And I tested from different sites to see what the clay did at different temperatures. And I would fire it in a kiln at different temperatures. So the top is lower temperatures, and the bottoms, where it says 6, is higher temperatures. And so this is just a clay test to see how the clay reacted at different temperatures, to see what clay I wanted to use or what temperature I wanted to fire at. And then after I bisqued that, which was the pass stage, I fired the clay to cone 6, which is where some glazes mature. And so the white inside, I tested the glazes on these to see how these structures, so I threw all these structures on a wheel to see how I needed to adjust the plasticity, or if I needed to add anything to make cups and bowls in these actual forms, instead of just, because dirt itself or some clay needs a lot more adjusting, and the clay here is very sandy, so it did need a little bit of adjusting. And then it came down to the question of who was I designing this for, and what did I want to make these pottery pieces for, or these ceramic pieces for. And I decided, so I've been working for Cactus Farm, and I decided to make a set or a line of tableware for the farm, because I find I really love working on the farm, and I think it's a perfect conjunction of this idea of place and history, and all these different things, and food meshing together, because this local food, this history, this place. And so Cactus Hill Farm is a working sheep farm down in Capuline, Colorado. And this is in the middle, this is Elena, and she's who I work for. She's amazing. I absolutely love her. And she lives in a 100-year-old adobe house. And how I got to know her was we renovated her adobe studio. It used to be an old garage where a whole bunch of machines were stored. And over the past couple months, we've been renovating it into her new wool studio and her fiber art studio. And so this idea of like taking and reusing a place and this history, and so I think this is pretty cool. And then the pottery that I actually designed for her, these are the pieces. These are some of the pieces, not all of them, of course, but I designed the glaze to kind of reflect the idea of this soil here, the dirt and the grass, this yellow grass that we see, in contrast with the sky and this bright blue, brilliant sky with all the sun we get down here. And so the red on the pottery here, like anything around the edges that isn't yellow or blue is the actual raw clay body. Because in a lot of my work, I like to use and leave the clay body exposed to remind people again that it's from the earth. And so these are just more pictures of the pottery that I designed for the farm. And so what I'm planning on doing for this gallery installation that's coming up here pretty soon is how I'm going to display this work is kind of create an atmosphere in the gallery, create this installation that immerses the viewer in the colors, the textures, and the feelings of this rural Colorado sheep farm. Um, and so the pictures on the right and the left are from her kitchen, and the one in the middle is just an idea of having these big long tables that I want to install in the gallery. And so the idea is to have a big, long, like Viking-ish, like mess table basically in the middle of the gallery. And that table will be covered in the colors and the textures of her farm and of rural Colorado. So we have willow and adobe and sheepskin and earth and raw wool. And we have, of course, the rabbit brush and then salt, because salt comes up and is all along the earth here, especially in the valley. So I'm going to cover this big table with all of these different textures and materials to really bring the viewer into what is on this piece of property and what exists in this land. And then my pottery will be on pedestals around this circle. So I'm in the middle, so it's a circular gallery. So the pieces will be on the circular outsides, and they'll be on pedestals covered in dirt, and my pottery bowl is sitting on the dirt, just again to remind people that it comes from the earth. And then on the walls, I'm going to print photos of the farm and of daily life on the farm. And these are just some of the photos that I've been taking while I've been down there for the past couple of months. And this was during sheep shearing, which is a very fascinating experience. And these photos are designed just to really bring the viewer into what is normal everyday life on a farm. These are her farm dogs, Chico and Blue. They're amazing. And what does it look? What is it like to live in a place that's local and has so much history? They've been there. Her family has been in the valley since the late 1800s, and so she has so much history on this land. Yeah, so here are more of the pictures, and I may choose to curate these pictures and add more or take some away, but generally these are the aesthetic and the feeling that I'm going for with the pictures, is to show the farm life of every day. So it's again bringing all of this back together and just celebrating the locality of what is it like to live in the San Luis Valley? What is my experience on this farm? What is this farm's experience in the valley? What is Elena's experience in the valley? What is her history here? And so I'm kind of tying together. So the pottery is a small part of this installation that I'm making, but I hope that overall that this can continue, and that eventually I would like to curate dinners, maybe in the summer when we have more local and fresh food, because March is not the ideal time to have fresh local food. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Here's a list of my references and just some of the resources that I pulled from. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or call me. And again, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much.